Well, hello again. For those of you who repeatedly ask me if I'm doing any work on the Thunderbird, actually not per se, but I am working on the evaporator. Brendan and I are going through this. I did a vacuum check on it, and it does have a leak somewhere in the system, and I'm going to wind up ordering brand new hoses for it and everything. So that's what's been going on, and then we'll jump from here into the radio, the Crosley that we're working on. Hopefully we can get that thing baby fired up today. I really do want to get it fired up. So will it work? Who knows?
The shadow knows.
It is time to fix the speaker cone. Our speaker cone's in a little bit of bad shape. This crack right here, this one right here, goes all the way down to the voice coil, which I don't like, but at least it's not coming apart like it is up here. Then we have this one here. So what do we do with that? We fix it! How many times I gotta say it? Okay, let's turn it over here. What I'm planning to do now is to push from the rear one at a time. I'm going to do one at a time. I'll do this big one here. I'm going to push it up from the rear and try to get it even, at least as close as I can with the existing cone that's in good shape. Then we're going to lay a little bit of that liquid tape on there, enough to hold it. And then we'll let it dry. And then once that's done, then we'll move over to this piece here. Take care of the large breaks first. The rest should fall into place. Let me turn it over. Now once you get it flipped over and push it down to where it's fairly even with the rest of the cone, you can go ahead and put your liquid tape on the rear to hold it. It doesn't matter whether it's on the front or the rear, as long as it holds it in place. But you don't need to gob it up, you know. The whole idea is to get this as even as possible back to its original shape, and then hold it in place with the liquid tape until you get further strength. By in my case, I use the used fabric dryer cloth. Stuff is so tough, really tough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break the dust up a little bit with this brush, and that'll also help me push the cone in a little bit there. You know, these breaks would have to be right there where the metal part is on both of them. They couldn't be out here, you know, where it'd be easy to work on. No. We don't want that. We do not want that. I like to use my pencil point to kind of, gently, very gently. This is kind of, this being an old paper kind of cone, it's really hard, but I've got a lot of experience doing it, and that doesn't mean anything. So I'm going to gently kind of push that cone part down there as easy as I can, over and over, just tapping it, and maybe we can get it up there to where it's fairly even on the other side. I think I got it pretty close right now. Okay, I think that's pretty close for this one. You don't want to overdo it, just get it up as best you can. I'll be doing the same thing over here by pushing it from the rear with the pencil tip. You can use a Q-tip. Q-tip works very good too. Just gentle, very gentle. You know, I can use a pencil or a Q-tip. There's our liquid tape. I just stuck the old pencil in there and kind of put a blob on the end of it. I'll get a little focus here. Now I'm going to slip it up underneath there and kind of drizzle it around gently, very gently, on the ripped edges. She looks pretty dry in there now. That's good. See, I only put a very thin layer, nothing heavy. I didn't over blob it. Let's flip it over and look at it. Yeah, that looks real good now, see? Now, it's not totally solid. I mean, there's probably some weak points in it, but it's better than what I had. Now we have something to work with. Now this one was pushed way down in, and it created quite a gap on both sides. And when I push it up from the back very gently and everything, it wants to keep springing back. So as this liquid tape dries, every so often you can go back there and give a slight push on both sides, and it'll eventually come back as close as it can get to being original, because the glue will be more hardened and it'll hold it and it'll keep it from going back. That's a lot better. Very gentle pushes from the rear, just very gentle down this side. Don't try pushing it from the top, because you'll go all the way through. Just a little few taps on the sides, that'll bring this part up. That's about as close as I think we're going to get it, and I'm happy with that. I'm going to put some of this stuff right here, right on down to the voice coil without getting it onto the voice coil. I have pre-cut this, by the way, before I laid on that stuff, so we're going to go ahead and put it right across. We're going to start at the bottom and lay it all the way up into there. Now keep in mind, when you get to the top here, you're going to be pushing down into these grooves. So if you cut it too short, say like right here, and you start pushing it down in the grooves, you'll never get it all the way out to here because it's going to pull it back as you push it down into the grooves. Now this is why I like using a pencil for this as well, because you can push it down into those grooves. Got to be very gently though. Remember, we just barely tacked it on the rear of the cone to hold this stuff in place, so the slightest push will break it right loose. Just kind of easy does it. We're just in the very early stages of this still. Now we're going to go ahead and let that dry. And then maybe not all the way, we'll just let it dry for, for maybe 15-20 minutes. And then we're going to put another coating over the top. Now, a lot of you guys have seen me do this 100 times. There's a reason I'm doing it again, and I keep repeating this from every so often in the videos. From time to time, there are people who maybe just tuned in. Never been here before, never been on this channel, never been on a channel that showed how to repair a speaker cone in this fashion. So they're learning something new. That way they can compare what they saw before in someone else's videos to my video, and then they might say, well, I like John's better, or I like the other one better. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So so that's the way it is, It's called making choices. Not a problem, It's good to check out other channels and see how they do stuff. I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. No, I don't wish I did. It would be an awfully boring life. Okay, we're done with that until it dries. Now over here, there is a small hole right there all the way through. Now most people say, well, I'll just leave that. No, you can't, because it'll start cracking all the way down through here. And besides, why would you want to leave it? We're here to fix things. We fix them. Since all of the pieces and parts to that hole were there, I was able to push them all back down in. And you can take a piece of dryer cloth and lay over there if you want, but it's really not needed for something that tiny. Just put you some of that liquid tape down there and kind of work it around a little bit. It'll be fine. Alright, let's do the final step to this. Nice and solid. I'm also going to put a dust cover over this. I don't like that at all. They didn't do that in the early days. I'm going to go ahead and have it done. Final step is to just put on another coat on the top. That's all. It'll support it now when I brush it, see? If you don't have that support, it'll go right through where the split was. This really helps it out a lot. It gives a nice, strong... Remember, we're not looking for beauty here. I keep repeating that whenever I do this. We're not looking for beauty. We're looking for repair and functionality. And it will be very nice once it dries. Same thing over here. That's all you got to do. It is time to get this booger going. The first capacitor we're going to replace is 10X. It's covering the hole where the original filter can was. We got to get it out of there. And it's just too huge anyway. I don't even like it. I hate it. I want it gone. I hate blue. Ooh, gone. Anyway... Down here, 10X is this one right here. One side goes to ground, the other one goes to between the resistors in the middle. So ground is right here. There's the ground. You can't miss it. See it right there? The shiny little bump right there? That's the ground. Connected to the chassis. The other end is supposed to go right here in the middle. So that's this wire right here, I think. Let me look. Yep, it's moving the old capacitor around, see it? So all I'm going to do is snip it close to the body of the capacitor, because I'll probably wind up splicing this one into the existing wires, the one that goes here and the one to ground. So let's get it out of there. All I'm going to do is just cut it. That's all. Just snip it out of there like so, and then this one will probably take 2 hands. I'm going to have to maneuver my way down through there, clip it off, and then hopefully it'll come out without any big sweat. This wire is awfully tight. Well, if ever you decide, well, I just won't pull those electrolytics out of there, I'll just fire the radio up, you know, no problem, it should work or it won't work. Look at this thing. That, ladies and gentlemen, is called a capacitor blowout. Blew it right out of there. So this thing took a shot of electricity from somewhere. I guess I should have talked about that a little bit more. This capacitor has 2 10 microfarad caps inside of it. Okay, this is this filter cap. It has a common ground, which is this end, and then you have 110 here and 110 here. The guy that used this thing, he only needed one of them, so he only used one side. I do not like disturbing existing solder joints that were done at the factory. I do my utmost to keep from that happening. And I could have run this wire from the positive side of this electrolytic all the way down through the back and brought it up and soldered it permanently in here. And I don't need to tack solder this one. I need to tack solder the ones that come down through this hole, because I need to remove it in order to de-rust the top of the chassis. This one here can stay. But, you know, they originally had it hooked in with this black wire and this brown resistor right here. And I decided, you know, and then they ran a wire from there over to here. That's it right there. So I've decided I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to disturb this solder joint right here. And just like I didn't disturb the solder joints on these tabs that I just clipped off and soldered to the terminals. Just leave it like it was. Let sleeping dogs lie, as they say. So I made it so I can easily remove it if need be. I put a coil on this end right here, just a couple of loops. This is the ground wire. And then I just did like a little hook around here, and I'll add a little bit of solder to that to hold it in place. Doesn't take a whole lot. I don't know if you can see that or not. I may close that up a little bit. There's no stress or strain on it, so I'd rather just leave it like it is. So if we ever have to remove this thing, somebody ever has to remove it, they can just, extract the solder. Where am I here? They can just extract the solder and just unhook it from that wire. And there again, they would not be disturbing the factory solder joint. Just be sure, anytime you have any kind of dealings with factory solder joints, you're going to solder into them. Make sure you clean them real good with a brush with alcohol, because they've got a lot of crud on there. They've been there, this one here, what, almost 90 years, They develop a lot of crud on them underneath and over. I've already given this one a good scrub. Okay, I'm happy with that. Right there, that shiny part, not too much solder. I did not disturb the existing joint. Not too much solder right there. It looks good. The heat shrink's been shrunk. And not too much solder on the ground. And it gives me a little bit of flexibility if I have to move this around a little bit, okay? That's all it takes. And you can still see the value. And that's what's most important. Well, it's not most important, but it's one of the aspects of installing the capacitors. Make sure you put it where somebody can read the values. Very important. This one here, can't see it. Okay, now what's this blob of solder doing here? Well, this one here had a wire that went down to here, to the it'll be the positives on the electrolytic capacitor, because it goes up to this this can. I don't know, this can right here. It goes up to that can there. So we're going to have to extract the solder. It looks like somebody just, I don't know what they did here. I don't get this at all. And it runs down here. Look at that blob there. And we're going to extract the solder from here and here and find out what we have. And then I'll probably take a piece of black wire, insulated wire, put some heat shrink over it and do it the right way. Anytime you have a radio that you're trying to repair, let's say you're learning and sometimes you get frustrated and you decide to, you know, keep going, don't work when you're frustrated. Don't work when you're hungry. Don't work when you need a beer. Don't work when you need coffee, like me. Stop, and then go back, okay? Take a little break from these things. And when you see something that looks like this, or looks like that, fix it. Don't shy away from it. Don't be scared. Go in there and fix it. This right here, I could have easily left it and then just run a simple wire over to here from that blob of mess. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to splice a new wire on there. I'm going to run this thing down to here, and then I'll probably run another wire from here up to here. Make it look kind of neat, you know, like somebody knows what they're doing, even though I don't. I'm going to try to keep with the original theme here. Apparently this was a factory wire. No, non-insulated. I don't understand that at all. Right there. Either that or he stripped the insulation off when he played around with it, Uncle Billy. Anyway, what I'm going to do is we have to take this terminal right here, and it's got to be hooked to this. This is where the positives of the capacitors go. So it has to be hooked to there. And then this has to be hooked to there also. So what I'm going to do, instead of running it down to here or splicing into a wire here and then moving it, I'm not going to go all. We're going to go ahead and take this and connect it here, and then run this black wire from there around the back and bring it up and put it through here and solder it up. Gives it more of an original look, you know. It kind of matches up with the existing black wires. You know, don't be locked into, you know, everything. If you think it doesn't look cool, fix it. It's your radio. As long as this radio is dead and there's no power to it, you can do all sorts of things. Just don't cross bare wires and things like that, you know. Make sure you insulate everything. And there's just nothing to this stuff. It's easy. The only thing you got to be wary about is you don't, if you're just starting out with soldering, you know, don't burn yourself with your solder. This thing is safe, but don't burn yourself with your soldering iron, which is something I have never done. Alright, I left the hole right here at the bottom of this tab, or where the tab is actually. That's where the positive wire is going to come through from the pill bottle once I get it in place. The other end, I made it, I kind of made it look like an original. I just wrapped it around just like that original one was on the left. I decided, what the heck, let's just wrap it around, make it look the same. Our next chore is to clean up this blob, this mess right here on this capacitor, which is 10Z. Now 10Z, the negative side of the capacitor, is hooked to the center tap on the power transformer. Now I always mark, anytime I see a center tap on a power transformer in any radio, I always put a little piece of tape around it and write CT on it. CT, I don't know if you can make that out or not. That means center tap. So I don't have to look for it later. I do that right off the bat. That's the first thing I look for, and the first thing I mark. Now 10Z is here, and you can see that the negative side is indeed connected to the center tap on the power transformer. Okay. Now some of you are going to say, "Oh, John, you screwed up. That's not the negative end. The negative end is the one with the stripe on it." Wrong, wrong, wrong. Don't take anything for granted on these radios, people. This is a 1935. Things were different back in 1935. You've got to read your capacitor. The positive end on these two, which are filter capacitors, is marked with a stripe. Just the opposite of what we're normally used to. So read, study things before you start plunging in to try to fix things. And now up here, this is probably, well, let me see. There we go again, see? This might be the positive, might be the negative. I don't know. I'll have to take a look at it when the time comes. Right now, we're not to that point. So let's go ahead and get this thing out of the way so we can clean up that blob. Got to get that thing cleaned up, because once I get that pill bottle in there and the wires come down through that hole I just cleared, then we're going to have to hook one negative to here, and the other negative is going to have to go to ground here. What a mess, huh? Alright, that blob is gone. It looks a whole lot better now. See, we're beginning to make it look a little more professional. You know, even though we're not professionals, we're just a bunch of hobbyists. Just do the best you can, but just don't make it look worse than it was originally. This one here is our next deal. Now this one, the ground is connected directly to the chassis. And I hate soldering to a chassis, even though it's the best of all grounds is to solder directly to the chassis, but I don't have an iron to do that, so I always have to look around for a different ground that's connected to the chassis. So if you look at here, I don't know why he didn't do it this way, Uncle Billy. You'll see that this ground the ground on the chassis goes back to this connector here, which is the ground for the speaker. And then a black wire runs all the way across and connects to here. Well, ground is ground, right? Yes, it is. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove this big blob of mess right here, get rid of it all, and then when I run the other ground down through that comes out of the pill bottle, I'm going to solder it here. A whole lot easier. So we'll have two grounds. We'll have, one ground here, and then of course one over here, and I left a hole for that, the two grounds. One goes here, one goes here, the positive goes here, and then all we have to do is hook up our power wire and do one other thing I want to show you. Well, of course we have to hook up the speaker too. Well, what was underneath that blob was the ground wire, of course, and then we had the end of this capacitor there. They just whipped it around there and soldered it. That's really not too cool either. Uncle Billy strikes again. And then right here, this lead from the capacitor that I think they changed it. It doesn't look original. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and permanently solder the ground wire in. I'm going to put a nice solder connection there. This one here I'm going to just tack in, just enough to hold it, because this cap is going to have to come out when we do a recap. And then I don't want to have to struggle with it. I just want to be able to slide it right off. Just like that. It's time to get our filter can in. I'm just going to slip it in, put the clamp around the bottom to hold it, snug, not tight. I don't want to break the things. This is plastic, even though it's bendable plastic a little bit, and I don't want to break it. Just going to put it on down through, and then there's a very important next step. Cup of coffee. Alrighty tighty, she's good to go. Flip her back over. Everything is a lot neater now. I also have I tack soldered on a new power cord. This sucker here was, I don't know, just a piece of crap. I don't know. It was hard to tell if that was original. I mean, it's an original cord, but I don't know if it was original to the radio. And I think what I want to do, the holes right here that they run the wires through for the power transformer for the power cord, the holes on those little tabs are not big enough, so once I replace this capacitor with a smaller one, I might have enough room in here to put another terminal strip and then run the power cord to it, and then from through a fuse and into it, and then run these black type wires. They're rated at 630 volts. Run these from the terminal strip up to these two tabs sticking out from the bottom of the power transformer. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Right now, everything is ready to go except putting the tubes in, cleaning a few grid caps. They're kind of rusty and mangy. I want to have good contact on the tubes. And then I need to hook up the speaker, and I'm going to hook up the speaker with the gator wires. I left the pieces of the wire on the solder tabs for the speaker, and so I know where they go. The black one is the oddball. The way I did it was I made black number 1 and then 2, 3, 4. From the black. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I put a piece of tape on each of the wires as I took them off to match up which one would go where. 1, 2, 3. On each tape I put 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4. Piece of cake to hook up, but you got to clean this real good because I'm going to be hooking up gator wires to these things. The black one, of course, will go black. This here kind of looks like a yellow one, so we'll go with yellow on that. And then this one here is kind of a reddish tint to it, so we'll go red on that for hooking it up. And then the only one left is the green. That's the way I'm going to hook it up on the speaker wires coming out of the speaker. Each of these gator wires has now been repositioned, so there's no way they're going to make contact with one another. And then I'm moving on to the grid cap wires. They are really mangy on the inside. Look at this. Just work them and work them until I get them halfway decent. That's not too bad down there now. Doesn't take a whole lot. Alright, these switch contacts right there and down in there, and the on-off switch will have to be sprayed. I'll be spraying them with a WD-40 contact cleaner. I don't have a whole lot left in that can. I hope I got enough to do it all. But we'll work this switch back and forth while we spray it. It's not going to be easy on there. They've got the open side is all the way on the other side. Of course, I could loosen it up, but I don't have a lot of movement availability because the wires are so tight. Like this one here. What a banjo! That's a banjo string right here. It's already knocked off all the wax on the coil. That's going to have to be disconnected, unwound, give me a little bit of slack, and this thing here is going to have to be lifted up above. And I don't want that so tight. It's got to be loosened. It's just too tight. Everything's been sprayed, and the band switch works. The tone control switch works. And there wasn't much I can do about the on-off switch and volume control. That's a sealed unit. There's no way you can get it in there unless you drill holes, and I don't want to do that right now. I know that the on-off switch works. I checked it out in the multimeter when I was checking all of the coils and everything. But the volume control, that's another story. We'll just have to wait and see. After you connect your speaker wires to the wires coming from the chassis, if you gator wire them in like I'm doing, be sure to put another layer of tape on each one. You don't want them touching. These puppies like this have a tendency to move around like little snakes, okay? Isolate them from one another with insulated tape or something to where they won't touch. Masking tape works real well as long as they don't touch, okay? I have hooked up the antenna wire to the back. There's a A1, 2, and ground. I hooked it up to A1, which is antenna 1. Now all we have to do is put the tubes in, but before we do, I'm going to take this WD-40, I'm going to spray out each tube pin. Then we'll get the tubes in, and then baby, it's time for action. We are, what they say nowadays, repopulating. I love these terms. Repopulating the chassis with the tubes, okay? Now this originally came with a shield around this 6K7. I've looked at other 655 chassis and there was no shield around it. I don't get that. If I put that shield on, I'd have to leave a wide crack here, a wide separation for this grid cap wire to go through. And I'd be afraid it would hit this metal right here. So we're going to leave that off for the initial fire up. One more thing, instead of, you have to understand this radio came from the Great Depression days. You know, anything that would work, okay? Instead of a standard dial light, at least I think, I'm pretty sure I'm right, these are what the old Christmas tree bulbs used to look like when I was a kid. Exactly the same. And they had this thing screwed in there on one of them, and you know, they wanted to light up the dial, so it worked. You know, Uncle Billy, he took care of that, you know. And now I've got two more tubes I got to get out of the box I got from our good buddy Bob Dobush. He's Find a Tube. He's a good man. He takes care of me. Let me get those tubes in. We are about ready to do a blast off. Everything is in the way, everything's hooked up and connected the way it's supposed to be. And I'm going to do one last final check of all my connections to make sure nothing's touching, it's not supposed to be touching. Make sure everything's connected, it's supposed to be connected. And get everything away from everything else too. Give it the one last, you know, deep breath, that sort of thing, and we'll see what happens. I'll be back. Now look, if you're getting ready to turn on a radio that you've been working on for a while and you don't really know, you really have never done it before, okay? All you've done is followed YouTube videos, guys like me, other guys. You think you've done it right, but you're not sure. Stop. If there's any doubt in your mind, you have to stop. Don't get all egotistical and prideful and all that crap. Say, yeah, I can do it, I can do it. Stop. Before I turn my first antique radio, there's a difference between antique radios and modern electronics, trust me. You know, the antique radios, big time voltages. They can smoke. They can do all kind of crazy things. Same thing can happen with modern electronics, but you're not dealing with 300 and 400 volts. At least I never have in a transistor type radio. Anyway, get yourself some help. Get on the Antique Radio Forum. Ask questions until you feel comfortable enough to bring it up on a variac and a isolation transformer. If you don't have an isolation transformer at a minimum, then and a way to monitor your voltage and your voltage and your current, the use of a multimeter, a couple of multimeters, whatever, then don't do it. If you're just not certain, don't do it. Stop. Get some help, okay? That's very important. Because why? Because safety is number one in these old radios. Safety is number one. It will always be number one. As long as you stay safe, you'll be able to keep working on it. If you don't stay safe, you could be history. Don't let that happen to you. Alright, I'm satisfied with everything. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. Now look, from this point on, all the fun and games are over. Once I plug this thing in and I hit this switch, and I start bringing this thing up on my variac, there will be lethal voltages in this thing that could do you extreme harm. Like kill you. You know, dead, that sort of thing. Especially if you got a weak heart. I've been zapped. I have been zapped more than once. And I'll tell you what, you learn very quickly what not to do. Here we go. Let me go ahead and, I don't want to plug that in there. I want to plug it in over here. Let's plug it in over here. Turn down our variac all the way down. Turn on our isolation transformer. Turn on our variac. And then let's see what happens. I'm going to look at the voltage. For those of you who have never seen this, we bring up the voltage and then we watch the all-important current draw. Okay? We don't want that needle on the current draw to be going up into this area. We're on the 1 volt scale, which is the top. Okay? So it's milliamps all the way. We're probably looking at a radio this size with this many tubes. At the maximum, you're looking at this area right here. Let me get over there where I can see what I'm doing. Jeez. There we go. We want to see about the maximum right here. If it starts crawling up in here, we're shutting down. Okay, we're going to take it up to about 30 volts. I haven't done this yet. This is going to be interesting. All I want to do is hear noise out of the speaker, people. That's all. Oh, something's happening. It's awfully high for 50 volts, but you know, let's see what happens now. 70 volts, okay, she's doing good. Are the tubes coming online? Ooh, our bulb is glowing. This is good so far. Let's check our tubes. Yes, yes. I don't see anything happening here at all. On this one. Shucks. Well, we still got a few more volts to go. We're up to 90 volts. I'm willing to go a little bit more. What's causing that is the capacitors. See it? Let's turn up the volume, see if we get any sound. We should be able to get some sound at 100 volts. And we are. Let me shut it off and check around, see if there's something that still needs to be connected. I think it's the volume control. This is the 6K7 here. When I touch the grid, it's everything's working there, but I'm not picking up anything, so we're gonna have to check on through the antenna system here. But you know, right now, I'm pretty happy. We do have B+. Well, that's it, guys. I'm gonna have to do a complete capacitor change out before we do anything else. I'm not gonna de-rust this chassis and spend the time doing all that stuff if the thing's not gonna work. It should work. It's just a capacitor problem right now. So I hope you learned something, anything, even one thing would be helpful for you. Until next time, this is John. I didn't want to end this video without giving it at least one more shot. I wanted to hear some sound out of this radio. Now I know the capacitors are bad, we probably have some bad resistors, but there was something else that was causing the problem. I could feel it. We weren't getting any reception at all. So I went back to the antenna section here, and I started looking around and I said, I don't think that there's a jumper between A2 and the ground here, which gives the, I guess it's the ground for all the primaries here. On your, your shortwave band, your 2 shortwave bands and your broadcast band. So I looked on the back of the radio, sure enough, there was no ground here. Somebody had, it's a jumper wire. Somebody had removed it a long time ago, and I put it in there, and we're still not getting much, but we're getting something. But we've still got a problem, because once in a while the volume will go just blast through the speaker and tear your ears off. So I don't know what's causing that. Probably a bad connection in there somewhere. But anyway, at least that's a little success for today.